Mr. President. This is actually a lengthy speech, but I would just like to convey certain salient portions and request that the whole speech be reflected in the journal today. I opted to speak today, which is International World Humanitarian Day, Mr. President, and celebrate and commend all humanitarians in our midst and humanitarians in the world. And I decided to speak on El Niño since many of our reporters and people from the provinces were besieging my office with questions on what is El Niño and what are its effects to our farmers and rural fisher folks and to everybody affected by this phenomenon. And so I speak today on World Humanitarian Day on the issue of El Niño and climate change, which is, I believe, one of the greatest humanitarian challenges of our time. What is El Niño, Mr. President? Pag-asa issued its latest El Niño advisory on August 5, stating that the moderate El Niño the country is currently experiencing will intensify in the last quarter of this year. And based on leading climate models, Pag-asa also announced that it will linger up to the first months of 2016. That's half a year. This El Niño is predicted to be identical with what we experienced in 1997 to 98, or perhaps even worse. And according to international institutions, this could be one of the strongest El Niño in 65 years. We ask, what is this weather system? How was it formed? El Niño is a cyclic warming of surface ocean waters in the East Pacific. And during El Niño, the usually strong easterly wind becomes weak. It becomes incapable of pushing warm water in the West Pacific region. Therefore, rains are diverted eastwards, causing enhanced rainfall in the Eastern Pacific and less rains in the western area. This phenomenon is identified when the temperature reaches 0.5 degrees Celsius or higher for at least 5 consecutive months, overlapping 3-month seasons. And this we have experienced in the Philippines and many areas in the world. It is part of a climate system occurring every 4 to 5 years. And imagine, Mr. President, this is just 0.5% degrees Celsius. What about the projected 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature? If this is already what is expected from 0.5, what more the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, which will be discussed in the COP21 in Paris in November, December. So this climate pattern is expected to cause dry spell, drought in our country. And based on the latest forecast this August, perhaps Senator Angara will listen now and cut short the short meeting he's having there, because the province of Aurora will be affected. And Camarines Norte, now he listens, and Catanduanes, and Laguna, Marinduque, Occidental Mindoro, Oriental Mindoro will be affected by this dry spell. And I'm sure many of our colleagues who will be campaigning during this months in the aftermath of El Niño will be affected by this. On the other hand, other drought-affected provinces are Bohol, Camiguin, Misamis Oriental, Quezon, and Siquijor. Less rainfall means less water supply. Among the most affected sectors in times like this is the water supply for irrigation. According to the DA, this phenomenon cost more than 2 billion pesos worth of damage to agricultural products as of May 2015. As Senator Cynthia Villar will look at the budget of the DA, which she chairs, we would like to know what kind of preparation they had for the El Niño, which will affect our agricultural produce. In Metro Manila, how will it affect all of us? Water supply from Angat was reduced to 41 cubic meters per second for municipal use since July 1st. The reservoir's level this month stagnated in 180-meter level, which is still below the normal high water level. Although Pag-asa expects the peak of southwest monsoon in August and September, and that 2 to 4 tropical cyclones will enter the Philippines in these months, gradual cessation of rainfall will start in the first week of October. The water from the coming rains in August and September may not be enough to refill our reservoirs because it will maintain sufficient water supply until early next year. What am I trying to say after having laid the basis and the predicate and the explanation for what is El Nino? I'm therefore urging the public, Mr. President, to conserve water. Several agencies have been working hand in hand to minimize the effects of this El Nino phenomenon. Pag-asa has been taking a close watch of these weather developments to provide information to the people. The DNR, DPWH, National Water Resource Board, MWSS, NPC, they monitor this. So what are we to do? In the advent of Metro Manila's water supply reduction, both government and the private sector should really prepare their demand management and supply augmentation to reduce the impact of El Nino. Ano ba ho ang dapat gawin? Let us secure our water requirements of the vital institutions. Let's undertake cloud seeding only if necessary. Water pressure reduction is also suggested. Rotational water supply schedules perhaps will happen. Reduced number of hours of water service, I hope not. And the reactivation of deep well sources and deployment of portable water treatment facilities. These are just some of the measures to reduce the impact of El Nino. And as I've said here many times before, there is a 1989 law which many of the senators who were present in this chamber earlier today perhaps authored long before I came to this chamber, and that is the Rainwater Collection Act, where perhaps the senior senators here should know that the DPWH was supposed to have implemented since '89, so that we will have rainwater collection in every barangay, in every home, in every infrastructure. If we had this, then we can actually recycle and collect water from rainwater. And there are other things which farmers can do. Farmers were engaged in alternative measures, including modified cropping patterns, the planting of short gestating rice varieties, maximizing the utilization of effective rainfall, the provision of water pumps, which DA should have done, the strict implementation of the proper water management and water savings technology, the reduction of water loss through canal lining and irrigation canals maintenance, and water recycling. These are some of the things which are not new, which NIA should have done all these years, which I, as senator, and I'm sure many of you will ask NIA, the DA, during their budget season, because this is not a new phenomenon. He said 97 this happened, and previous years, if not decades. So what am I saying? We may not be able to stop El Nino because it is brought about by climate change. Yan pong letrato yan ay sa Iloilo, Mr. President. Yan po ay sa Iloilo. I think that was the campaign of 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Tinapo nyo, tigang na tigang ang lupa. Nangyari nung 2010, wala pang El Nino ng panahon yun. Oh, I think it was an El Nino year, 2010. I'm not sure of this. But see how the El Nino hit our farmlands. So I already mentioned how we can practice water gathering and storing rainwater for daily chores using perhaps a water dipper. Magtabo-tabo na lang. Ako po hindi na gumagamit ng shower, tabo na lang ang aking ginagamit para hindi sayang. Gathering and storing rainwater, gaya ng sinabi ko, para may rainwater collection using a tabo or water dipper instead of showering when bathing, and turning off faucets properly so there are no leakages and there are no pipes. And perhaps we can look at our monthly water bills, at kung biglang tumaas na wala nang pong dahilan, ay ibig sabihin may mga tumutulo na kailangan paggawa kaagad. And this has happened in my home. I monitor it, and when there is a 500 or 1,000 peso spike in the price and there's no additional people who use the water, there's a problem. And true enough, there is a leaking pipe, or perhaps we're not able to close our water our faucets properly. These are simple measures that if every household in the 100 million population would do, we can actually conserve on the use of water. And so there are many more things I'd like to say here, but I would just like to stress the need for climate action. The changes in temperature, rainfall, sea level would be disastrous to the agriculture sector. Look at that. All because of El Niño. Crop yield potential is estimated to decline by almost 20% in Asia towards the end of a century. Rice yield in the Philippines, Mr. President, will decline by 75% if we don't do any interventions due to climate change. Imagine, 75%. Then there goes, that's almost telling us that millions of people will die from this loss of the source of livelihood. So our country's agricultural adaptation program must ensure more investments in agri-research and infrastructure, improved water governance, magtipid sa tubig, and land use policies, better forecasting tools, this is for DOST, and early warning systems, and perhaps a strengthened extension system that will assist farmers to achieve economic diversification and access to credit to make significant improvements in our food security. And so I have just proven, Mr. President, that indeed climate change is a gut issue, and we need to act now if we want to ensure food security today and in the future. I thank you all, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge on El Niño and climate change on International Humanitarian Day. Thank you, Mr. President.